To address both your questions, we can confirm that the OPCW team has still not been able to enter Duma in Syria. It is now 12 days.
Can I go to Syria to pick up on where we were on Tuesday with the OPCW still not having gotten access to Duma, and apparently still that situation is still the same. One, what do you have anything to say about that? And secondly, you and I had a little bit of a conversation about potential your belief that the Russians and/or Syrians are tampering with any evidence of a chemical attack. Does the continued delay give you more concern that might be the case?
Yeah. So to address both your questions, we can confirm that the OPCW team has still not been able to enter Duma in Syria. It is now 12 days since the attack took place on men, women, and children, those innocent civilians in Syria. We have credible information that indicates that Russian officials are working with the Syrian regime to deny and to delay these inspectors from gaining access to Duma. We believe it is an effort to conduct their own staged investigations. Russian officials have worked with the Syrian regime, we believe, to sanitize the locations of those suspected attacks and remove incriminating evidence of chemical weapons use. We have also watched as some people have seemingly been pressured by the government to change their stories about what actually occurred that night. We have reports from credible people on the ground who have indicated that they have been pressured by both Russia and Syria to change their stories, to try to change their stories so that it doesn't appear that Russia and Syria are responsible for those attacks. We certainly know that Syria is responsible for those attacks.
Okay, so the delay then does make you increase your concern, or not? I mean, we
Well, the delay
understand that
certainly
they were
increases
shot at.
on a few levels. One, the longer that those sites are not able to be investigated by OCPW fact-finding mission experts, the more that the evidence can certainly deteriorate, and that's a great concern to us. We also believe that it gives them additional time to try to clean up and sanitize those sites.
Okay, and when you say that you said at one point, we have also watched as people have been pressured into changing their story. Does that, is your evidence that they're attempting to sanitize the area of the alleged attack, is that also something that you have, quote unquote, watched? Which
We have
suggests
credible,
that you
we have credible information and intelligence that leads us to believe that.
Okay, and has it been successful? Do you know?
That I do not know. That I do not know. I just know that they are attempting to sanitize it.
The people who are being pressured to change their stories, who were they giving the stories to? Was that people interviewed by media or by
we've seen. In fact, I've seen some people interviewed on international media. We've seen some reports run on Syrian state media, so that perhaps that's of no surprise. But just a reminder that those are that would not be a credible outlet, Syrian state media, nor would, in our view, Russian television on this matter, because they have a vested interest in making it seem like they are not responsible for the attacks.
Sorry, this will be my last one on this. So do you believe that now with the delay that eventually, if and when the OPCW team gets in there, that their investigation is going to be necessarily compromised?
It might be. It might be.
But
that is certainly, that would be the goal of Syria. That would be the goal of Syria, to compromise that information.
But are you saying then that if and when they get there and they do their tests and it turns out negative, that means that the Russians are guilty of sanitizing it? But if they get there and they do their tests and they find evidence...
That's a lot of ifs. That's a lot of ifs. They're not there yet.
But there's also a lot of ifs in the they may be trying to sanitize, or
We believe they're trying to sanitize. We believe they're trying to sanitize.
But that's a hypothetical question too, right?
No, it's not, because we have credible information and intelligence
But
that leads us to believe that.
Does it follow then that if and when they get there, do their testing and determine that there's no traces of sarin or chlorine, then you will conclude.
I am not a
that it
chemical
has been-
expert.
that
I'm
it
not
has
an
been
expert
tampered
on
with.
how long sarin and chlorine can remain on soil, on building walls, and all of that. So I'm not going to wade into that conversation.
It seems like you're setting the stage for them to get there, do their testing, find no evidence of something, and then you can then you'll be all teed up to say, well, here's proof that they tampered with
Well,
it.
we will have to wait and see, Matt. We'll have to wait and see. Okay. Saeed, hello.
Thank
How are you?
How are you? I have a couple of questions on the Palestinian issue.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything on Syria before we move on? Okay. Kylie,
Okay.
go ahead, and I'll come back to you then. Kylie,
One
go
more
ahead.
thing, just back to the stabilization efforts that are on hold right now. Can you explain to us exactly your perspective on the U.S. now withholding all funding for the white helmets, given that you just had them here last month and showered, positive praise for the work that they're doing?
Yeah. So as we talked about the other day, the stabilization funding is under review at this time. We recognize and appreciate and are very grateful for all the work that the White Helmets continues to do on behalf of the people of their country and on behalf of the U.S. government and all the coalition forces. They're doing incredible work in rescuing in some cases, and other cases it's recovery efforts. They're an incredible group of individuals, but I just don't have any additional information for you on the funding yet.
But if the funding for them stops, does it mean that their work has gotten less good?
Their work stands for itself, and that is excellent work.
Is the
Leave it at that.
premise of her question correct? Has funding
part?
for programs
No,
that support them?
that all continues right now. I just
it
exchanged emails with him the other day. My understanding is that their work is still going on, and we're proud to work with them.
The U.S. funding for them. Any funds that the U.S. Was
I'm sorry?
giving them. Has the funding, any funding that the U.S. was providing to this group ended because of the pause?
As far as I'm aware, all of the work still continues. People's bills are still being paid. If there's anything that's a change to that, I'll certainly let you know.
The U.S. contributions are still flowing?
As far as I know, that is all still in play.
Can you just check that though, because there's an internal State Department document that says on April 15th that funding would have ended.
I will
understand
double.
You're not going to comment on that,
I will
but-
double check on that. If it's an internal document, I can't. We don't comment on internal documents, but I'm not aware of one floating around. If there is one that says that. Okay, go ahead.
Hi. Iran handed a death penalty to Ramin Hossein Panahi, a Kurdish prisoner, and UN human rights experts called it an unfair sentence. He was mistreated in prison and didn't have a fair treatment. Do you have a comment on that?
I'll have to look in that case for you and see if I have something for you.
Okay, and also Iran and Russia and Iraq and Syria had a intelligence sharing summit in Baghdad. Does that concern the U.S. now? Iraq is sharing intelligence with all those countries.
I don't know exactly what Iraq shared with them. Certainly, Iraq and other countries have a right to get together and have meetings of this sort. This is not the first time this has happened.
And
With
also
this type
on
of
the
meeting.
Iraqi airstrike in Syria, were you aware of that airstrike in Syria?
Yeah, I can tell you that the U.S. government was aware of that. The Iraqi government announced that airstrike took place. They have reported it today. It took part. The Iraqi Air Force conducted that airstrike, and we were certainly aware of that. Okay. Let me get. Excuse me. I'd like to get to other people before coming
Thank
back.
you.
We're going to have to wrap it up in just a second. Ilhan, hi.
Thank you, Heather. Turkey, yesterday Turkish President Erdogan declared these early elections, what the opposition parties call it as ambushed elections due to very short term. Do you have any confidence in Turkish government and the situation in Turkey, which has been going under the state of emergency for about 2 years? Do you have any confidence that Turkey is going to able to hold elections in fair and free manner?
I think first this gets back to the issue of the state of emergency, which has been in effect, as you point out, for about 2 years now or so. During a state of emergency, it would be difficult to hold a completely free, fair, and transparent election in a manner that's consistent with with Turkish law and also Turkey's international obligations. So we are aware of that. We are following this very closely. We have concerns about their ability to hold it during this type of state of emergency. We would certainly like to see free and fair elections, but there's a concern here. Okay. Okay.
Thank you. So the president and you just supported an end to the Korean War, but the U.S. is the head of UN Command. So what role is the U.S. going to play in seeking an end to the Korean War?
I can just say, look, we're not getting ahead of the conversations that the president will be having with Kim Jong-un. We would like to see a resolution to that overall, but I'm not going to get ahead of the president.
And the president threw the summit into question altogether by saying that he wouldn't have the meeting if it wasn't a fruitful meeting.
I don't think he threw that into question. I think the president indicated that if it weren't fruitful, he may not complete that meeting. I think that's what he was saying.
Okay, and then just one more on the abductee issue, if you don't mind. But President Trump said that he promised Prime Minister Abe that he would do everything possible to bring the abductees back to Japan. So did Director Pompeo raise that when he was in North Korea?
Look, I can't confirm anything about on that issue. Okay. 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 Pardon me?
Did Pompeo mention about Kim Jong-un, about U.S. citizens, detainees? They're going to release the detainee before talks?
Whenever we have conversations with the North Koreans, that is always an issue that is raised. Safety and security of Americans, including those who are being held in North Korea, is a top issue for this administration. Yes. Okay. Thanks, guys. We got to go.
It's just about
Excuse
official.
me, but it's so presumptuous.
Well, because I don't
It's
think you
so
will.
presumptuous. But okay.
Well, I'm sorry. If you have an answer, that'd be great.
I'll see if I do, but gosh.
It has to do with EPA Administrator Pruitt's trip to Morocco in December. As you know, U.S. embassies and consulates often give support to
Yes.
official delegations abroad, and I'm just wondering if either the embassy in Rabat or the consulate in Casablanca were involved or helped out with this trip.
He went to Morocco
In December.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Did you have an answer?
Of course not. It's about Scott Pruitt. Why would I have an answer about Scott Pruitt?